COSM is really flexing some muscles here. We need to go over a few statistical backtests here because there are some serious opportunities presented. What is up, you guys? Thank you so much for stopping by. Once again, this is ARCa coming at you with a COSM technicals, raw price action, and statistical threat of analysis on this Hump Day Wednesday. Before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share the video with a friend so that you and them could consider joining our trading community in Discord called ARCa Bulls. With that said, let's dive right into the charts. So as you can see here on the technicals side of the COSM asset, we have a buy signal pretty much on, this is the trading view algorithm, right? Telling you what, based on its, the oscillators, based on its moving averages and the overall summary, it's giving you a buy signal on the 4-hour, even with a strong buy on that moving averages, right, all the way up to our medium-term time frame daily, right? So it's looking pretty good in the technical side, which is interesting, since the statistical side is also kind of meeting that as well. Okay, so let's just go ahead and go over some of those details right now. Okay, so this is the ARC. This is my algorithm, right? This is the ARC reversion variant. And we can actually see here that we have a top side and the resistance to look out for at about $4.05. And it's curious, the $4.05, because of this. Please notice that these candles, the high of this one here is particularly 404, right? The high of this one here is 405 as well. So what that is essentially telling us is that we have pretty much, this would be our chop zone, right? Where we've been trading for the last few weeks. Right, so it's very curious that it would give us that resistance level right at the 405. Another thing to notice here is that the top side of the bands is giving us about 592. I want you to keep this. I want you to keep this target in mind. Okay, following into the next screens, because there are several signals that could potentially lead to this target here at first. Right, but let's go ahead and dissect this, right, because the statistics are actually where it's really at. So first, let's go ahead and touch down with the 5-day volatility versus momentum profile. And I want to just mention the power behind this, first of all, because we have the third validator here, which is the DMI indicator. Okay, so this is the directional movement index. And it also has the average directional index represented by this dotted white line, right? So this is the ADX. The ADX, whenever it is above the 25 percentile or at 25%, that actually indicates a very strong trending market to whoever is leading the way. And as you can see here, the bulls are on top of the bears. So right now, literally right now, the bulls are leading the way with a very strong market trend, okay? The next thing I want you to focus on is the stochastic momentum. We have an upside pivot on the leading indicator, EMA3 versus the SMA14 towards the upside, okay? So that paired with volatility contracting, so I'm talking about the volatility versus momentum profile, right? So contracting volatility, upside pivot on the stochastics with DMI support, this is automatically a setup. Okay, this is automatically a volatility play. Okay, and what does that consist of? All right, so let's go ahead and take a look, historically speaking, right? So throughout the entire trading history of the COSM asset on the 5-day time frame, I have taken note of any time that volatility, let me just go ahead and get out of this menu here. Anytime that volatility has started a contraction phase paired with stochastic momentum towards an upside pivot, right? And also with DMI backed, right? So that has actually given us a total of 6 out of 6 iterations. Okay, so I know it's a 100% accuracy, which is interesting, right? At some point, this is going to invalidate, and it's not going to be 100%, right? So nothing stays perfect all the time, but thus far, it is perfect, right? So this gives us an averaged upside thrust of 162.05%. This is our mean. Okay, so and now over the span of about 116 days on average, right? So I wanna talk to you about also the fact that there are certain ranges here, because if you are familiar with statistics, right, these are the samples gathered to create this data set here, right? So from the mean, we're able to calculate a standard deviation. So the standard deviation is leading to a massive 373% upside thrust, right? But what I want to actually what I want to actually focus on is the lower end of the first standard deviation, right? So the kind of the bell curve, if you're familiar with that. So the lower end or the lower bound of the standard deviation, first standard deviation, leads to about 78 spot 10%, right? So what that means is that when this criteria, right, the contracting volatility versus upside stochastic meets, whenever that criteria meets, then we have a 100% chance that we can get at least a 78 spot 10% move to the upside. Okay, so I want to focus on that target first because that one would be, you know, obviously the most pertinent, right? And the one that could give us a nice resistance range. So now that resistance range is coming out to $5.58. Okay, so now we have a bottom side to our bands here. Okay, so this is 558 over here, right? So now it's giving us now we're able to draw kind of a resistance range, right? So we're going to continue stacking this as we go, right? So this is the way I usually trade, right? I trade based on statistics, based on these metrics. So now we have our resistance range here, which just so happens to have a huge amount of correlation with that top side of the Bollinger Bands, right? So let's go ahead and continue on the analysis here and see what else we have in store. Okay, so now this is the daily falling wedge that we were looking at, right? Just let's go ahead and keep things a little bit simple here and show some of the more normal way of looking at things, right? So not like the not so advanced way of looking at price action, right? So this, of course, this is your falling wedge, which is usually a bullish formation, right? Pardon me. Now, we have met the upside targets of two price objectives. So you're looking at three types of bulls here, okay? So the first bull would actually trade based on this target here. So you take a trend line from the top of the triangle all the way to the bottom of the triangle, and you apply it to that area of breakout, and you can see that the price action eventually reached that, right? It reached this target. The second set of bulls would be the ones to take the center of the triangle, right, somewhere around here, and then you apply it to that breakout, right? So the price objective was actually met already. So now upon meeting that, the middle section, we retraced back and started validating our newly converted resistance into support, right? So which was this. This was the resistance, right? And now it's a support before a continuation to the upside. Okay, so now that third bull would actually take a trend line from the top side of the triangle all the way to the bottom side of the triangle, and we apply it to that breakout, and this would lead to a target of about $4.56. Okay, so I just want to show you that we are in the breakout process from this falling wedge, and it's looking nice. Okay, another thing is that we reclaimed the inside of our Gaussian channel, right, which is this red cloud here. Okay, so it's very important that we did validate it as a good support before continuing on to the upside. Okay, so this particular mean band here on the daily has a resistance of about 386. All right, so let's go ahead and continue on the analysis here because this is another statistical setup that we have currently in play, and absolutely the signal, I could consider it fired now, right? It's just the only thing is that I would really like to see the volatility component, which is the spectrum line here. I would really like to see that upside of at least a 10 percentile and also the moving average, right? But we are increasing volatility with the upside pivot here. Okay, so remember, volatility is direction neutral. We use stochastic momentum or a momentum-based indicator for that direction bias. Okay, so anytime that volatility has contracted into this zone here of within the 10 percentile and started an expansion phase towards the upside, very similar to what we're doing now, I have paired it with stochastic momentum with an upside pivot as well. Okay, as you can see, this one is incorrect and this one is correct right over here. This one is correct. We got that upside right anytime that we have been within that range down there in volatility. Okay, so what I want to point out here is that we already have about 70% or 80% of the validators in line for this statistical move to play out. And those are, first of all, yes, DMI. We have the ADX sitting at a 26%. Remember, I just said anytime that we are above or at the 25%, and we have bulls on top, that means it's trending market for the bulls and DMI support. So that means that we have DMI support for this volatility play. Okay, please notice here that we have now officially entered both of the EMA 3 and the SMA 14 into the bullish control zone with an upside pivot. Guys, this is very powerful. Okay, very, very powerful. All right, so what I mean by this now, upon this criteria being met, there is a seriously powerful move to the upside. Throughout the entire trading history of the COSM asset on the 8-hour time frame, I have taken note of any time that criteria has met with an upside pivot, and also versed it with the correct versus incorrect iterations. These are all the samples, right? And now this gave me this data set right over here. So you're looking at a total of 9 iterations, of which 6 have been correctly guessed to the upside, with an average upside accuracy of 66% and with an upside thrust of a massive 206%, with a standard deviation of a huge 382.87% to the upside. We have an unusable lower bound of the first standard deviation, but we do have a usable higher, upper bound, right? So we can't focus on this one just yet, right? It's not saying that we're not going to get there. I'm just saying that, it's a little out of the question right now, and targets that I am not really comfortable speaking with right now, right? So even the statistical mean of 206% to the upside based on this criteria, that's even massive, right? So I don't know. Could there be a fundamental catalyst coming out? Who knows, right, you guys? But if this move officially, fires, which, I mean, in all technicality, we could use, let's just say that it did fire from today's opening of the 8-hour candle, right? So right around here, right? So if actually, you know what, we can do it right at the upside pivot. No, yeah, actually we could do it from right over here when we started getting the upside on the volatility component, right? So let's go ahead and bring it down to right about here. And we're going to measure what upside targets we have, right? So, all right. So the upside target we have is about $9.72 based on this criteria. Okay. So I just want to tell you that there are several time frames backing this upside right now. If you move into the 12-hour time frame, please notice that you have upside on both the EMA 3 and the SMA 14. We have critical contraction. We have DMI support almost on the 12-hour. We have 20% on the ADX, bulls leading on top. Please notice the daily time frame. We have upside pivots on those EMA and the SMA 14. We have the ADX trending upwards with the bulls trending upward as well in critical volatility. So, guys, what I'm telling you here is that whenever we see a large amount of time frames in this criteria, that usually indicates a pretty powerful move to the upside, right? So that's it is just kind of like, it's out there, it's out there for us to kind of evaluate, right? So and now referring back to that 590, the 592 to 558 range. Right. This is another curious thing here, because we do have, if we were to take, a Fibonacci retracement from the top of the range here all the way to the lower bound of the range, which is, let's see, which is, right about here. So the Fibonacci retracement from this area to this area here, it actually gives us the 2.618, which is the golden mean, the very golden ratio, right? The 618 ratio, giving us a 587 target. Okay, so now that gives us even more validator that we could be within this area in the first place, right? So I know it's kind of a far away target right now, you guys, but my eyes are on, first of all, 405 to then the space between 558 and 592 for the relatively immediate short-term time frame, right? So I don't want to say immediate like 30 minutes or tomorrow, but I do want to say that this has several statistical plays in play, right, currently. So now if we're going to just get a little more surgical here, let's go ahead and revise the last part of the analysis here, which is the RSI, right? So 30-minute immediate short-term time frame suggesting a downside, right? So this downside is absolutely limited. Why? Because the bi-hourly is telling us that we are very near that SMA 14, of which we've used previously as a form of support, right? Before continuing on to the upside. So very likely we can actually see this is for real, like during the morning or maybe up to the mid session at the most, right? We can see a retracement back I mean, if I'm going to be very discreet, very clear about this, it could potentially be around 335 to about 333 before a continuation to the upside. And why can I say continuation to the upside? Well, you see the downside here on the 30-minute. You also see the downside here on the bi-hourly, right? But you don't see it on the 8-hour. The 8-hour is actually pivoted towards the upside with both the SMA 14 and the signal line. Another thing to notice here is that we are definitely in the gravitational zone of the bull weakness percentile, so this is very likely to get pulled up to the upside. Please notice here your daily time frame with a very convincing upside pivot here. Notice here on the 3-day time frame that we have a freshly made upside pivot using that 14-day simple as a support, and also the 5-day time frame using that 14-day simple as support with an upside pivot. Guys, this is absolutely powerful. COSM could be getting ready for a very nice move to the upside, and I would definitely keep this on my watch list. But please remember, first and foremost, that I am not a financial advisor. Take whatever I do show and iterate within these videos as just a form of entertainment, as I cannot suggest for you to buy or sell any assets whatsoever. I need you to do your own due diligence and everything will be cool, okay, you guys? But with that said, I wish you well, a very good night, and I will catch you at the bell mañana. Adios.